Hey. Hey,
Hola.
everybody. It is Adam and Lindsay show, Monday edition. Yes,
Oh,
indeed. Adam,
howdy,
introduce
howdy. How are
yourself to the
you?
people.
Hey, it's at the Adam Head. That's me. Hello, people. I'm
Hello.
here to make it interesting.
And amazing.
Amazing. Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'll stop kissing your ass. All right. So we've got a lot of different things to get into tonight. A lot to unpack, as they say. Um, and we wanted to answer a question that our friend, I forget his name, he posted it
Let me pull it
on.
up.
Okay, he's going to pull it up. He commented on one of my posts and really good question. Really, really, really good. We both been thinking about it. So,
All right. So basically, the gist of it is when can we trust ourselves to transition from survival to living?
oh, thank you for writing that. Okay, cool.
There we go. And then how do we gauge ourselves and when are we ready? How does living compare to survival?
There's so many parts to that. I mean, like 3, but
Yeah,
that's a lot.
I think we just tackle that first part. When can we trust ourselves to transition from survival to living? So I think we got to define the difference.
Yeah.
What is survival? What is living? So for me, survival was just fighting and scraping and crawling every day to get by without drinking. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm going to take this. Obviously, he doesn't make the distinction that we're talking about drinking or drugs or anything like that, but that's how
Right.
we're going to use it. Um, and doing the just doing everything that I could figure out to do to make myself feel better and make myself feel normal in a time when I didn't really know what normal was, what that felt like. So for me, that survival was very uncomfortable. Um, but it was a time of trying to learn about myself through a lens that wasn't clouded by alcohol.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I
um,
think of when I think of survival behaviors too, I have the intervention that we use at my work, and I really like it because it's called survival behaviors, and it it tries to it's like a worksheet, and it tries to get the client to see where they're at and if they are in that survival mode right now, and that really means to me, and it's defined in there, like trying to get the basic needs met, right? So like eating, living,
yeah,
I mean, you know um being around people, that's a need. um Social, so I think like when I was living in that, I was an addiction. But I think that can also be possible when we get sober, because we don't
yeah,
magically just change when we put down the drugs and alcohol. I mean, I was fortunate enough to put down the drugs and alcohol and feel a ton of relief. And I was on a so called pink cloud, which I use that as a reference because I think we can stay on the pink cloud. But, anyways, so I think it's like, how do we all how do we move from that to that, was a question. How do we
yeah. How do we
transition?
go from survival to living? So yeah, you said something there that reminded me. So the way that I used to track kind of my daily inventory, I learned this at a treatment center and carried it for quite a while. Was the spies, and we've talked about this a few different times. It's just
Mhm.
5 metrics to look at every day: spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. And so I was trying to hit those 5 things, at least 3 of those every day.
Ooh, I
But
like that.
the difference between survival and thriving, or surviving and thriving, is that in survival, I'm having to make myself do those things. I'm having to consciously put in effort to do
Mm,
something spiritual, do something physical, do something intellectual, do something emotional, do something social, and
right.
stay sober.
So
So
it's like in the
that,
primitive kind
yeah,
of.
it's very much, you're still, I wouldn't call it that you're in fight or flight, but primitive, you're having to work for things above just the basic needs.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh,
That's a good definition. So, Okay, so when do you know? How do you know you can trust yourself to transition? I don't,
That's a good question. I think that requires a lot of explorative self work.
yeah,
Because here's one thing that I don't agree with. I don't think that anybody else can tell you that you're ready.
right.
And I also don't think that anybody should tell you that you're not ready.
True. Good
Um,
point.
Now, yeah, obviously that one's hard to swallow. You got to take that within context because I'm not going to take somebody that's a week sober and say, "Hey, man, you're good. You don't have to do anything. Don't worry about it." That's
Right.
just going to be, falling flat on their face. But if you've been doing the work and progressing, and you've got some time under your belt sober, you're going to know how you feel. And if you're doing the right kind of work, you're going to be able to recognize when something triggers you or when you're starting to feel a little squirrely.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing the work and you've got that energy invested, I think that's how you start trusting yourself is you put yourself out there just a little bit and you develop that trust.
I think you're
Push
exactly
outside
right.
that comfort zone.
You're exactly right. That is, you just got me thinking about some stuff. So I remember when the time came, well, it happened many times, but I remember like the first few times, it was like a process when I thought to myself, hey, maybe I can trust myself. Like maybe, like those thoughts started coming up. And I think it was because I was making progress in my recovery and in my life. And I started to do things that proved that I was autonomous, and that was huge for me to get to that point, right?
Right.
Or to even understand what that was. So I think that can be delved into from that too. Like I just remember doing hard things, like I like to say, and accomplishing things, little things for me. But it
Yeah.
was just the accumulation of it. And then it was like I knew I was able to connect with myself and get quiet, kind of like how you were talking about
Yeah.
meditation, and ask myself, like, am I really, ready to, do this or do that? What are my motives and intentions? And that could go into a whole nother thing with
Yeah.
whatever, which I won't go into, but
And you just said mindfulness, and obviously one of my key tenets to my recovery was mindfulness. But if you, like I said, if you're doing the right work, I think you naturally become more mindful. And then
yeah.
if you're constantly making yourself analyze your thoughts and your actions and your behaviors, and all of a sudden you realize as you're putting groceries in the car that, hey, you know what? I just went to the grocery store, walked past the beer and wine aisle, didn't even have a second thought about it, and you go, "Oh, but damn, that's some progress." And so that
True.
helps you build that trust. I mean, there were
Yeah.
times when I'd go to the grocery store and be like, I'm shopping on that side of the grocery store because on that side's the wine, and they have little ones that are already cold. So that's something that I would have done. But now it doesn't phase me. That I don't have to worry about that.
That's important that you just said that too, the mindfulness. Because like you catch yourself doing little things that you wouldn't have done before, and like just naturally doing them. I
Yeah.
doing adult things were when I started, it
Pay your
sounds
bills on time.
wild, but it's true. Like when I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I just did that. That was not my
Yeah.
default behavior I had been doing for so long. So I
Yeah.
think, and then you
Yeah.
surprise yourself, and I know I'm proud of myself. We got
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
celebrate the little wins like that.
Yeah. So definitely.
Nice.
So then survival to living or thriving, I think obviously I like that. He said survival to living. Um, but I think you got to have the middle ground of living before you get to thriving. Thriving's like super living, right?
Yeah.
So if we go from working really hard and survival, now all of a sudden we're doing pretty good. We're living now. We work on our sobriety, we're working on our recovery, but it's kind of now become a foundation, and you're
Mhm.
able to go out and do things with your family and do things with your friends. And sobriety is not always top of mind. It's just kind of chilling and running in the background. I think you're living.
It's
And I
integrated
think
in
that's where
too.
a lot of people trying to get to.
Yeah.
And then Thriving, personally, I can tell you what the definition is for me. Thriving is where I really don't put any real effort outside of the stuff I do on Twitter and talking with you and Scott Sober Heathen. It's really about the only recovery sober work I do personally.
Well,
I don't have to work anything. It just is. It's just who I am now.
right. It's like your life is a testament to how your recovery is going. I mean, you and me are always reading different kind of books to learn and better ourselves and try to figure out how to help ourselves and help others. So I think that's a huge part, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, we kind of geek out on it.
Yeah, and I think that's super important to do that. Like we're committed to self-betterment, you know, in our sobriety, because I think that stagnant feeling can come with not learning. I mean, you obviously learn stuff every day, but I mean, actively pursuing knowledge, you know.
And I think that's how you go from living to thriving.
Yeah.
Is there's the pursuit of something more that is interesting for you.
And
You know, it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be personal development like you and I like, you know, the pursuit of something more, the pursuit to go out and expand yourself, expand your awareness, expand your consciousness in some other way.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be a hobby, whether it be, I don't know, a fantasy world that you're reading in, you're writing about, just the pursuit of additional stuff, energy.
Yeah, it's
I think that's how you get to it.
Yeah, it's because like you have the space, you know, and the energy to be able to stop focusing on just getting through the day. And it will happen if we do the work. And what is the work? It looks different for all of us, as we always talk about. It doesn't have to be a certain way. There are universal truths, and tactics used, skills, coping skills that we all use, but we don't all have to do the same path, right? So
Absolutely not.
it looks different for all of us. Did you want to, anything else you wanted to talk about on that one before we move on?
Let's see. How do we gauge how we're doing? And I think we hit the survival to living. At least I think we did.
Yeah.
If anybody has a question, feel free to post it up.
Oh, please. Yes. I mean, feel free to post anything, comments, questions, concerns.
We have a very rough outline, like when you're first learning about outlines in 5th grade.
Like, no, worse than that. Come on now. Mine was better.
In crayon. It's not in crayon.
I will start on something that I plan to talk about, and it's difficult sometimes to even stay focused, and I'll be like, fuck this. I'm going to talk about something else.
Yeah. Well, let's talk real briefly, since you kind of brought it up, what that self-work looks like, the deep work. I've gotten to the point now where I call it deep internal work, because sobriety work just doesn't really cut to the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, because what is sobriety work really?
Yeah, it gets confused with step work, and it's definitely not step work for me. For me, the deep internal work was mindfulness of my thoughts, learning to always observe them. And so I got asked this the other day, and I've never really taken the time to kind of explain. So everybody, you start thinking about meditation. And what most people think of when they think of meditation is, all right, clear your mind, don't think about anything, sit here and, you know, basically be a blank slate. Well, that is the absolutely last thing that's ever going to happen if you try to meditate. What you're supposed to do is sit there, let your thoughts just do their thing, watch them, but just kind of dismiss them. Like, hey, I appreciate you showing up today. I'm going to pick you up and set you over there. And so to learn how to do that, if you remember Toy Story, all right, so you remember the little squeaky green guys in the claw machine? You know what I'm talking about? Uh-oh. Are you muted? I'm muted.
Sorry about that. Silas was talking to me. I'm listening.
So you got the claw machine that's like at all the arcades. And so I would just envision this claw machine going through, and as just a weird random thought came by, like, all right, I see you, weird thought about fire trucks, and just kind of pick it up and move it over to the side,
That's
you know?
cool.
And as soon as, I kind of, I acknowledged the thought and said, I'm not worried about you right now, it went away. And so after
Dang.
doing that for a long time, it eventually got to the point where I would recognize thoughts and just kind of let them go, and I'd get deeper into meditation. Being able to be mindful of all of my thoughts was my first step in that deep work. But then coming and learning to accept the fact that I am not my thoughts, that my thoughts are separate from me.
Mhm.
And Eckhart Tolle does a great job in his book, The Power of Now, I think is the name of it, where he says, and I had this thought one day, I can't live with myself. And he says,
Mm.
wait, are there two of me? There's I can't live with myself. Well, which one am I?
Hmm.
And so that's how he kind of first came across his realization of I'm not my thoughts.
Ooh.
I am different than my thoughts. My thoughts are hiccups and a conglomeration of my subconscious, my thinking brain, all that. And so
That
for
is
me, that's what that deep work was.
that's brilliant though.
I did not
Because
come up with that.
no, but we were talking about it kind of similarly when I brought up how, when I was trying to escape my thoughts or my emotions, I mean, either one, I
Mhm.
mean, they go hand in hand.
Yeah,
When I was doing that, I was running to drugs, to alcohol, to behavioral addictions, to anything to separate, which you cannot separate like the brain from the body or the thoughts from you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like trying to make myself a sociopath basically, like not
yeah.
feel the feelings.
I've
And I
been
was like,
down that
I'm
road.
gonna figure it out. And I feel like I did it well for a while.
Yeah, me too.
And I think it's like, what is it, like dissociation and other things
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
didn't
Live long
realize.
and prosper.
Yeah, well,
Spock.
it was yeah, probably what did I read something that was saying like Spock brain or something.
Yeah, it's
Talking
exactly what
about
it
it.
is. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
yeah. And I'm like,
Sever all
"Oh, shit."
emotion. Sever all emotions. Logical reasoning only.
Oh my god. Well,
It's a
in the
very easy life, but it's very,
yeah,
very dull.
yeah. Well, and I'm trying to find the balance too. We talked about that. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, this is not anything new I'm bringing up, but the balance between emotional and logical, which has
yeah,
been, you know,
yeah,
for forever trying to
yeah.
figure out, I'm sure,
Well,
which
so
they
I
have to
think that
integrate.
that segues us straight into talking about uncomfortable feelings and what to do with them.
Yeah. Where do we begin on that? Which part
Well,
specifically?
um,
Well,
not
wanting to not feel them, what do we do?
yeah, wanting to not feel them. So that's step one is don't follow that impulse.
Yeah.
So what I was like before we started going live, one of the things that I've had to learn how to do and try to practice, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily great at it. I'm still, I would say, excuse me, I'm still kind of in the not necessarily a phase, but I think my personality is that of a person who just doesn't express a lot of emotions.
Mm,
I don't think I was like that when I was younger, but I think through the process of some different life experiences and growing up and then going through everything I've been through for the last 15 years with drinking, I think that's just kind of who I am now.
mhm.
And so for me, I have to remind myself that, hey, not everybody knows what you're thinking and feeling because you put up a very flat front most of the time around my family. When I'm out in
Mm,
public, it's completely different, which is weird.
not
Um,
weird, not weird. I'm sure there's a reason. I
no,
mean,
I'm sure
because
there
I
is too.
relate.
I'm sure there is too. But sitting
Yeah.
with feelings. So we either due to our ego or just to having this nice big prefrontal cortex that likes to analyze and rationalize everything. When we have a feeling and an emotion we don't like, we want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And so we try to figure out a way to get rid of it. And we always come up with actions and behaviors to do to get rid of the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
All the feeling wants is to be recognized.
And
And
named.
when you and named, yeah.
Mhm.
You're feeling sad, you go, man, I feel sad today, or I feel sad right now. Why am
Mhm.
I feeling sad? And you just work yourself through the list of questions. So I'm a safety professional by trade, and there's this old concept called the 5 whys. If you want to understand what happened and why something happened, you ask, well, why did this happen? Okay, well,
Mhm.
why did that happen? You take it 5 levels deep. Eventually, you're supposed to get to the underlying reason. Why
Oh.
do I feel sad? I don't know. Well, why do I feel, how did that, why do I feel sad? Well, because I don't know, Lindsay called me up and said she hated me. Why did Lindsay call me up and say she hated me? Because this happened to her. Why did that
Uh-huh.
happen to her? Because, and then you eventually
Oh, I
you
get
just
it.
process it.
I
You
like
process
that.
it.
Mhm.
And
I dig it.
so then the emotion has got its recognition. All
Right.
right. Your feelings have been validated. You say, hey, I'm sad. I know why I'm sad.
Mhm.
And every time I've done it, I go, okay, all right, I'm good.
Yeah.
And it's for all of them. Pissed
Yeah.
off, angry, discontent. What's the big
Yeah.
three? Irritable, restless, and discontent. Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Shall is. Well, and that's a thing too, is I am still working on this. I don't perfectly know how to identify my feelings that I'm feeling, right? Because I've
yeah,
pushed them away for so long. And, you know, I think that a lot of my growth was kind of stunted and maybe mentally, right? Because of
yeah,
drinking and using during those years, the 20s and lower. But I think like just learning it all new now is just it's something because
yeah.
I didn't realize I didn't know how to do that.
I'm going to. So one of the very first um, treatment centers I went to, I was the same way. So and I'm looking on my phone because I'm going to try and find this app to share with everybody. Um, I'll tell a story first, but anyway, she would, we go around, hey, I'm Adam, I'm alcoholic. We're all sitting in group therapy, and you had to lead off with how you're feeling.
Mhm.
And, I was always using like one of the big ones. I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm whatever. So she made a rule one morning, it's like, you cannot use like the same feeling more than once. And she was tracking it or something. And so eventually it got to the point where she kind of called me out. She goes, you just you don't know how you feel, do you? And I was like, no, I don't.
Mm-mm.
She said, can you describe some feelings? Not even ones you feel, but if I gave you a feeling, can you describe it? And so she said, playfully energetic or something like that. I'm like, I got nothing for you. And so one of the things that she made me do once I left, we got phones back and stuff. There's this app, and every morning it you don't sign into anything. It literally is just a tracker. You pull it up, and it gives you a series of like 20 questions, and you slide along this little slider to
Oh.
kind of where you are, and over the course of a month, it starts tracking different emotions for you.
Ooh, get that app. I wanna know what
Yeah,
that
I'm gonna
is.
find it and post it in there because it was
Okay,
so
cool.
helpful. I mean, I did it for like a
Jesus,
year, but
that's
it shows
awesome.
you like it tracks stuff over time, and eventually it shows you how you start bringing in your emotions and your feelings and some other factors, and everything starts to kind of eventually come together. So
Mhm.
it's pretty interesting. I'll find it in just a second.
That is
But
cool. Well, mood tracking is huge, especially in like CBT therapy, which is the most effective therapy, they say, right? Most common and most effective. So there we
my
go.
favorite.
Well, yeah, naturally me too. And what else was I gonna say? Oh, another thing. Okay. This book I'm reading is I don't have it over here, but it's how to talk to yourself, I believe it's called. I sent it to you earlier today.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Uh,
this was brought up that when you say I am and the feeling, which we talked about this in a little bit different manner the other day, but um I realize that I do that all the time. Like I'm so sad. I'm so depressed. Like don't tell yourself that you're depressed. You're not depressed. You're
Exactly.
feeling a certain way. I
Yeah.
was like, and I do that all the time. You probably caught on to that. Like I try to catch myself. I'm like, oh my God. Because I'm
So
really,
then,
really trying to be mindful.
yeah. So now if you take that with that whole what you just read
Yeah.
and think back to our conversation about identity and I am statements, now you understand why I'm like so up in arms about continuing to call yourself an alcoholic.
Well, yeah, I'm
Well,
glad you
not
brought
you,
that up
but
too. Well, yeah, no, it's well, and that's been the theme of our month, hasn't it? Like a lot of identity stuff and what did I write? Transformative talk. I don't know. I wrote it down earlier. I can't
Mhm.
remember. I think that's what it was. But talk that's, you know, it's like I'm setting myself in that one spot when I say that I am
Yeah.
that. How do I go beyond that? If I am that. And he talks about 5 levels of self-talk. And I want to do a video on it, but I mean, I have the thing if you want to hear them, or we could do it next time, but it's just interesting to see how we do that and how we evolve with certain things that I would say to myself. And then,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
So this takes me back to a few minutes ago. We were talking about Marissa Peer, who is another fairly
Silas
oh
made this, wants to show it.
um it's pretty cool.
Thanks, baby. Yeah, he said thank you. All right, baby. See you later. I'm a chicken. He calls himself a chicken. Yes, that's what I said. And you're also a chicken. Thank you, honey.
So
All right, quiet down. Bye.
he's excited. He's
I
excited.
know. He likes to
Um,
be able to talk to people on here.
so Marissa Peers did this thing about 10 years ago. It was called the I Am Enough movement. Because this line struck me. I was watching one of her talks, and she goes, psychiatrists and psychologists call me all the time when they have a client they just can't break through to, and they're worried about them. And so they call me, and I work with them for like 4 or 5 hours, and they're fixed. She does fixed because that's their inside lingo between the therapist and everything. She goes, and the therapists always hate it. And I say, well, you're psychoanalyzing them and asking them why they do all this stuff. I say, everybody gets the playbook when they go to med school for psychology, psychiatry, whatever. It's right here. I'm not enough. Every
Yeah.
problem we all have boils back down to I am not enough.
Yeah. Damn. It
And so,
does.
however we rationalize that, I am whatever. If you distilled it down, it's going to be I am not enough. And
When you go
so
down to the questions.
she makes all of her people. I mean, I'm not a big fan of putting sticky notes everywhere, but she makes them write it on the mirrors with lipstick and puts it on their phones, and it's I am enough.
Yeah.
And she said, you'd be surprised how 30 days of saying that out loud will completely change someone's life.
Damn.
I am enough.
And
Now,
believing that shit when you say
and
it.
that's exactly the point, because everybody at first goes, this is some child's play horse shit right here.
It is
How much
though,
am
if you're not if you're
how much
just
am I
saying it.
paying you to come in here just to tell me to say this? But the thing is, we talk about mindfulness. So anytime that you want to affect, especially a massive shift in how you believe about yourself, how you behave, if you will be mindful of examples of that throughout your day. Just like earlier when I mentioned going to the supermarket, putting stuff in your car, and then realizing, you know what? I didn't even think about the beer and wine.
Right.
So if you're going throughout your day and you're telling yourself, I am enough 3 or 4 times a day out loud, and at the end of the day, you stop and you think back to times where you were enough.
Yeah.
You write that down. You are reinforcing that programming. And
Mhm.
that's what that is. That's
Yeah.
subconscious reprogramming. It's going back down to core beliefs that
Yep.
shape your thoughts, that shape your feelings, which control your actions.
Rewiring your brain essentially
Rewiring.
and the neural
Yeah,
pathways. It's
that's
it's
exactly it.
it's science, like, that shit is wild.
You know?
I know, man, I'm getting into it, like, this is stuff I wish I'd known earlier because it really is, a large part of everything, you know?
Yeah.
It really
It's
is.
amazing what happens when you start looking at stuff from a beliefs, you know, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, actions standpoint. Just
Absolutely. Let's,
uh,
read some of the things we were talking about earlier on the post too, that
yeah.
some of the misconceptions about was that the word I used? Misconceptions about
So
or myths or something about drinking and clearing them up. And the last few comments were pretty damn good. So, do you have it up? I'm pulling it up too.
I'm looking.
Okay.
Everybody is blowing up on my last tweet, so it's gonna take me a second.
Okay. So, here's what geez, sorry. I'm going down my notifications. Okay. Someone said a misconception that others may have is that it's 100% difficult 100% of the time for 100% of people in recovery, period, to be in recovery and not drink a drug. And I think that's a really good one to point out because if it were difficult 100% of the time for me, I wouldn't be sober. You know,
No, probably not. Yeah.
absolutely not. There's no way. There's no way. I am not feeding for it. I'm not struggling from it. I mean, there can be times where it could pop up again. And that's why I practice healthy coping skills, right? That I do on the regular, amongst other things. But I think that a lot of people, maybe not in recovery, think that and maybe think that we will relapse easily. I've had that come up a lot. And someone else
Yeah.
wrote that, right?
About the walking on eggshells and stuff.
Yeah, like if they have it around us or whatever, or they're like nervous, and
Yeah.
that's not always good, right? Like for a lot of us, but I mean, just any kind of
Yeah. I
anything.
mean, even there's some, I mean, I guess friends, acquaintances who know my history with alcohol from the past, and so even today they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's okay if I won't order a beer if you're not okay with it." I'm like, dude, even if I was actively drinking and not drinking right now, you ordering a beer has nothing to do with me drinking.
True.
Um, that's just my own personal triggers. We could
Hmm.
be in the middle of a kegger, and I'll be like, I'm not drinking today, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's different for us all, and that's kind of the thing, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah,
it doesn't bother me. Would I go do that all the time and be in bars? Hell no, you
yeah,
know? But I'm not like fragile like glass to where I can't I don't have any choices of removing myself from the situation or this or that. Like
right,
I
right,
can do all those things, right? Like
yeah,
I'm able to keep fighting the good fight, my friend. And I forgot what the other guy wrote cuz he deleted it. But it was oh, people believe that we're just good people, or I don't want to say good. I'm trying to refrain from good and bad saying that. It's really difficult to do that. Um He said, people think that we automatically just become these fixed good people. I'm going to say what he said, good people all of a sudden, and that's not true.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Just being sober, it doesn't make you
no,
good, and being an addict doesn't make you bad.
right,
Um,
exactly. Well, using and drinking, I did a lot of negative, destructive to myself and
yeah,
others, um, remorseful things, right? And when I put down the drugs and alcohol in the beginning, I did have relief of that, right? Like to where I'm not making the same dire mistakes like drinking and driving,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean? But
Yep.
it
Yep.
takes work to be able to remain sober. And I think to remain sober, I think we have to transform ourselves and whatever you want to call it. I call it self-betterment, wellness, and you were talking about doing the inner work because we have to work on all those things and get to the root cause of
Yeah.
what we're searching for. Like what am I
Yeah.
looking for in these things and these substances?
Well, and that goes straight. So another lady put on here, common misconception about sobriety is if you quit alcohol and drugs, then all your problems will float away.
Yes. Very true.
Don't you wish that was the answer to life right there? Oh, just don't drink and drug and everything will be fine.
I thought that at one point.
Yeah, yeah, hugging
I
a toilet.
did.
I thought that too.
I remember thinking, well, before I quit drinking and using, my thoughts were also on, well, if I just get this job, I'll be happy. If I just get this man, this boyfriend, I'll be happy. If I just get blah blah blah, I'll be happy. And then it came to the point where it's like, if I just stop drinking and drugging, like I wouldn't
So,
do these things. Not
well,
true.
isn't it funny though how while we're drinking, we're like unconsciously, subconsciously going to booze and going to drugs because it makes us happy.
Yeah.
And then as we start contemplating giving it up, you go, "Oh, if I just give it up, maybe it'll make me happy." And then we start thinking about how it's not going to make us happy. And so we go back to doing it happy. And then you finally go full circle and you go, you know what? The only thing that's going to make me happy is in here. It's the only
Yeah.
place you're going to find it.
Yeah.
And that's
And
that deep work as well.
which I have sort of veered away from saying being happy because I think it's a temporary feeling. And I don't know
All
where
feelings
everybody's
are
at.
temporary.
Why don't you share it on Twitter? Um,
Yeah, help us out.
my dog. But I don't know what I was saying. Like I see squirrels and I get distracted. What was I saying?
Thanks, Alan.
What was I saying?
Uh,
Saying,
happy.
yeah, because well, our friend Tony said progress and growth is what we're made for as humans. And that is where happiness really is, right? And I
Yeah.
fully can get on board with that. I feel
So
that.
what did we just talk about starting off with survival, living, and thriving? What did
Yeah.
we say thriving was?
That. Yeah.
Looking for say exactly right there.
Mhm.
You just said it. Yep.
Mhm. It's so true. Yeah, it all intertwines so amazingly sometimes, right? Like it's all one
Yep.
thing. And another thing that I wanted to point out, we were talking about it earlier, but I'm really on this thing and trying to say this as often as possible because I think that it isn't mentioned enough because people focus on not drinking, not drugging, taking the drug, not going shopping, not doing this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of like, what can I build up in my life to where I won't want to go to that
Yeah.
behavior, drug, alcohol. And I think that it's weird how remember I sent you that picture of like the line and like when I'm like not trying to do anything, I'm like taking stuff out of me, but not
Mhm.
fulfilling it with something else, right? Or filling it with something else.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the God-shaped hole thing all over again.
Yeah. Exactly it. Yeah.
It really is. I forgot what else I was thinking. How do I explain this? Um, so the reason I think we say we go to like a place like Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever and say, I can't drink alcohol, but it's alcohol's but a symptom. I understand, like I was Don't jump on me, guys. But I'm saying it kind of is kind of counterintuitive if you ask me. Like, so does everybody agree with me though that can we agree on this or like find common ground that it's not about the substance? I mean, people probably believe that, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, a lot of
yeah, I
people
would
do.
agree with you.
But that it's what is this thing fulfilling? Well, not even fulfilling, but that you're attempting to use to escape
Temporary
feel better.
relief. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I doing that's,
So
maybe
it
all
goes
sorts
back.
of stuff.
So it's those three words that restless, irritable, and discontent. When we
Mhm.
were asking, what does that actually mean? What are
Yeah,
those?
right.
That's the 1930s way of saying that I am not happy with who I am in life.
Mhm.
I'm not happy with where I am in life. I'm not happy with what I do with my life.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
so finding the things that allow you to be happy, that bring you happiness when you do them, that when you just wake up, you're naturally living from that energetic state of happiness and love and fulfillment and joy. Finding those things is that inner work.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
it's learning about yourself and understanding yourself to the point that you can embody all of that for
Right.
yourself and for no one else but for yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
true that. What
so
else were we talking about too before?
mm, before we went live,
Yeah, we were talking about other stuff. Does anybody have any recovery, situations or,
I don't know. Alan says
um
he's pissed off.
is it the same thing as the other day, Alan?
It's 1:30. I'm trying to figure out where you are. 5 hours in front of me.
Oh, he's in the UK. I wrote some other stuff down though.
I'm still trying to find this app for you. May not. It may not exist anymore. This has been a long
Oh
time ago.
shit. I wrote down here, take inventory of the emotional vocabulary that I have. And I'm
Ooh,
trying to
that
remember what I was
sounds.
talking about. It says, "Oh, okay. Your consistent vocabulary is producing your consistent vocabulary is producing your consistent emotions." That sounds weird. And your emotions are creating your quality of life or lack thereof. I don't know where I got that from. It's in my notebook. Self-love begins with the internal conversations with ourselves. Ooh.
Can you say that again?
Says self-love begins with the internal conversations with ourselves. I
Ooh,
should touch on this because especially today, a lot of those negative beliefs are coming up, right? That I'm
yeah.
talking to myself in a disrespectful way with, you know what I mean? Like being straight up disrespectful to myself, being like, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, you should know this, you should not feel this way. And every time I
Ah,
do that, what
man.
happens?
You shit it all over yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to shit all over myself anymore. But this is so, I don't want to say this is difficult because I'm going to put that on my self-conscious, right? Subconscious, I'm sorry. Um, I'm going to make a log of it again. I'm going to do the exercise again because I need to really catch what I'm saying to myself because it's creating my freaking reality. Men in white, I know because whatever I say, I believe and is essentially true.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely. There's a whole nother conversation to be had about my personal beliefs and the power of words and how I am really affects your life. I mean, more than you really think it does. But
They
even
will.
just from a psychological standpoint, just the way the brain works. And we've talked about it with words
Mhm.
having meaning, just saying I am and I should. You're setting expectations for yourself that are unrealistic for you to keep. And you want
Right.
to talk about the ultimate setup to fail? I should have done this. Think about that. I should have done. You're setting expectations for yourself in the past tense that there's no way you can go back and change. And so
Right.
you are automatically going to feel inferior and less than.
Mhm.
You can't do it.
Right.
Now, when you say, I should do this in the future, again, you're setting expectations for
Mhm.
yourself in the future where you don't really know how the situation is going to play out.
Right. Exactly.
And so then the brain has created an imaginary scenario that hasn't happened yet, and then is trying to figure out a way to keep the imaginary scenario from happening.
Yeah.
That's
Ooh,
the problem with shoulds.
well, and another thing I was thinking about today is I heard last week, and this has been over and over going on in my mind. There's two states of fear, I think, and it was losing what you have, the fear of losing what you have, or the fear of not getting what we want.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, it is boiled down to one or the other, realistically, right?
Yeah.
It's the anxiety. And I'm thinking about, well, if I'm disturbed, if I'm restless, irritable, discontent, no, but if I'm upset about something or triggered by something, there might be that fear there. I'm going to lose something, or
Yeah.
I'm not going to get my want,
Yeah.
my way.
Yep.
Eye opening, bruh.
Yep. Yeah. We were, so it kind of goes hand in hand. Before we went live, talking about being right, getting the
Mm,
kind of the last word in.
mm,
One thing that one big lesson that I finally took to heart and started basing my actions on, this was about 4 years ago, is putting everything through this question: would I rather be right, or would I rather get what I want?
mm.
And
Ye
99.999% of the time, I go with what I want. And I let the other person be right.
Yes. Ooh. I gotta stop saying it. That brings me to another thing. Um, no, but I wrote in my notebook earlier, take the ego out of it. Take the ego out of it, because the things that I replay in my mind of past events or possible future events that haven't happened, it's it's my ego kind of talking to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which goes to fear. And
sure.
I don't know how to describe it, but I'm sure you get what I mean. It's like when I'm getting upset over like what someone said or the situation, and I'm thinking of alternative scenarios or trying to figure something out. And it's like, that's all ego, because none of it really matters. None of it
Yeah,
matters. I just, in the end, what matters is how I feel about myself, that I'm safe, that I'm in a good place. And that's
yeah,
it. Doesn't matter. None of the other shit matters.
yeah.
I
And
got to
so that's
keep telling myself
one
that.
of one of those Peter Crone quotes is the ego doesn't necessarily want to be validated like we think it
Mhm,
does.
mhm.
The ego just wants a hug.
Damn. True.
So when the ego starts getting in there and you start thinking out of that, if you're mindful and you catch it, you go, you
Mm,
know what? Yeah, that did hurt us. Or you know what?
yeah.
We weren't right there. Or acknowledge it and go, you know what? But it's okay. You know,
Mm.
and that's learning to self accept and integrate
Damn.
all those negative things, and
It's like
helps you
having
learn. And yeah,
self-compassion.
yeah.
Damn.
So he's got a
Right.
really great analogy that I love, and this goes so wonderfully with the uncomfortable feelings.
What?
If you can learn So we've talked before about operating from the energy of love, saying, "Hey, I'm in love." Oh, that's great. No, not with somebody. I'm in the energy of love. Okay.
Mhm.
So what that means is if love has no agenda, and then for you to love yourself, you have to hold space for the parts of you that you don't necessarily like.
Mm.
And the easiest way to think about this is you're going to have a dinner party, right? And you're going to invite all of your emotions to the dinner party. You're like, hey, it's great. Happiness has come. He's always a great time. Joy is just going to be wonderful. Everybody's going to be in a great mood. We'll bring humor. Humor gets everybody laughing and breaks the ice. And then you just start working down the list. And you're like, but anger. Do we have to bring anger? Somebody might get hit. Pride and jealousy. It's going to cause a fight. You know, and you start listing all those other ones off. Yeah, they got to come to the table too. They're a part of
Damn,
us. And so
that's
when you
good.
learn to go, this is why I keep saying, your emotions and your feelings, you don't need to do something to get rid of them. You just need to acknowledge them. And when you hold space for them, they'll be content.
Yeah.
And they go, you know what? All right, cool. You heard us. We said our piece. Now we're just going to chill out for a little while and, have the hors d'oeuvres course.
Well, you know what? And that makes sense because our feelings are literally there to tell us something. It's information, it's data.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
a toddler like pulling at our pant leg. That's what my
That's
therapist
exactly right.
said. And I was like, that's amazing.
That's exactly what they are.
She's
Exactly
like,
what they are.
there's something there that your feelings are trying to get your attention. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
This
what? And she's like, I
this is
don't
not
know.
sitting with me well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's just the physical manifestation of an emotion. They are.
good shit. Good shit. Well, any comments before we head out? Head out. Take off. Deuces it
Good.
up. No, that didn't work.
Head out.
Oh. Do you remember Full House?
Of
Did you watch that?
course.
Where he goes, "Cut it
Cut
out."
it out.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Well, it's been real, it's been fun, it's been real fun.
All right.
Ooh.
Nobody?
Ready?
Nobody?
What? What?
I was just going down through the comments, chats.
Oh,
Not a ton in there tonight, but that's okay.
no, 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 but that's okay because I needed this conversation. So,
Well, good.
that's what it's all about, baby. It's about me,
Glad.
right?
Hey,
That's
gotta be about
that's what
somebody.
I like to think. But no, it's not. It's not
Oh,
about me. Well, everybody have a great evening, and we will catch you on the fly maybe tomorrow,
all
right?
righty. Good night.
Deuces.